Well, welcome everyone to Carving a New Path. My name is Andrea Hylen, and I am the host of this show. And just to fill you in, if you haven't listened to any of the shows, this podcast began in 2020 in response to all the change that people were experiencing. And I really wanted to host conversations where we could talk about things that fall apart, things that come together, and especially with people who have listened to their inner voice and birthed new ways of being in the world, things they didn't even realize they were going to create in their lives. And so this is a continuation of that. Today is a series. It is the sixth show in a series of 10, where Karen Porter and I are going to talk about conscious self-evolution and highlight some of the codes in Barbara Marx Hubbard's book, 52 Codes for Conscious Self-Evolution. And, before we get into the show today, Karen, I just wonder if I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't ask you about this earlier, but I always think about it that, is there a way for people to reach out to you or see work that you've written in the past or anything else? Is there some place you'd like to send people to or invite to come and say, here's some of the conversation? I'm totally putting her on the spot, everyone,
I
because
know you are, and it's
Mhm.
it's like I all I want to do is highlight this group that I just found called the Dead South.
The Dead
I
South.
the Dead
Cool.
South.
Okay.
I am obsessed with them, the way I was obsessed with Gogol Bordello years ago. The
Uh-huh.
Dead South. They're a Canadian group.
Hmm.
Um, they had got their mention came up on the Facebook group about Northern Exposure and people rewatching it and commenting.
Hmm.
And it was kind of random, but it's like, okay, if this is like a group that would have lived in Sicily, Alaska, and in the land of Northern Exposure, I have to check it out. They are unbelievable. The the I think probably their like big hit was In Hell I'll Be in Good Company.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a song about a man who kills his cheating wife, maybe also the lover, and says, well, in hell I'll be in good company. Um, but their official YouTube video for that song has over 408 million views.
Whoa.
They are amazing. And there's raspy voice and there's using the cello as a guitar and like really kind of wacky off the wall stuff. And if you're easily offended, don't listen to what they sing, because one of their songs was about she may be my cousin, but she needs some good loving. So it's like, ooh, okay.
Hey, they're pushing the edges. They're,
That's right. That's right.
taboo.
Yeah, it's like, but they look like a group of like uh Amish guys or
Mhm.
like fundamentalist people, because they have like their little suits on and stuff. But I have just been listening to them, and it's fun to listen to reaction videos from them. And like they did a cover of You Are My Sunshine in like the original way, where it's so painful and mournful.
Hmm.
Oh, and the cinematography of the videos is great and whatever. So that's the rabbit hole I'm like just like taking a break from to come and talk today. But what was the question?
So, so I'm just going to let everyone know I quickly did a Google search and I'll put the link into the show page also when we finish talking. So it'll be there if you're viewing this on the recording. But it says that the band was initially formed in 2012 as a quartet band. They're identified as folk, bluegrass, musical ensemble. And yeah, so I'll post that for everyone. Because like I said, I definitely just put her on the spot and this came up. And do you want to know something? I feel like this is totally related to the code that we're talking about today. So with that said, let me just let everyone know that the show today is called Be Ready to Repattern. And the actual code is be ready to repattern at the next stage when the larger pattern is ready for you. And it's really, I would say, of the 42, or not 42, 52 codes, that this is my favorite code. And probably because there's the part of me that's the researcher and the experimenter and curious about why we're drawn to certain ideas, information. And I feel like one of the clues in what Karen was sharing about with the musicians, the Dead South, was she's been drawn to the music because of a number of reasons. First of all, her irreverence, which is one of the reasons I love her, is her ability to like live kind of push the edges with things. And also how much she loves the cinematography, and which are all interests of yours. It does speak to art. It speaks to your humor, and that sometimes what we're being prepared for at the next turn of the wheel, the next cycle, is that there's some kind of connection that we don't even know what or why. It can be connected to the creativity of something. It can be connected to the community that you're drawn to. And so I feel like this is one of my favorite codes because there's a point where you can kind of see at a crossroads why you were drawn to a certain topic. And I love that, where it's like you're still in the mystery, you're not at the end of the codes, which is victory is assured. Um, like you've completed a cycle. But it is a part where you get a few more clues about, okay, now I see how this comes together.
Mhm.
I do believe everything is connected and that there are no random moments of what we're being drawn to. There's something that connects to something else. And as you were saying, Karen, um, this this rewatching of Northern Exposure that really brought a community of people together, can be another turn on the cycle where you notice something about why you were drawn to the series in the first place, and it helps you to remember things about yourself that maybe you have forgotten. Um, so yeah, I'll just be quiet for a moment before I go into this a little bit more to see if there's anything you want to reflect on. Anything coming up for you?
Oh, a lot is coming up because um I'm feeling totally comfortable where I am, and I'm feeling like I'm totally in the weeds at
Mm-hmm.
the same time. Because there is repatterning happening. Um, I had eye surgery a week ago, and there it's a two-part surgery, so I'll be having more surgery in about a month. Um, but I've reframed it. It is where I am. Is this is the summer of my seeing things differently. Um,
Mm.
so that's learning what that entails, knowing that um, it's all going to be fine. But it definitely, in the midst of it, it feels like if I would allow myself, it would feel anything but fine.
Mhm.
But I'm just kind of trusting the process and knowing that this is part of, where this is where I need to be today so I can be where I'm going to be, in a month, and then in another month and another month. Um, yeah, it's the whole repatterning. I've definitely been through it, like recognizably, like that I could actually acknowledge, oh yeah, that was repatterning, that was repatterning. I've been through it enough to know that it's gonna feel damn weird while it's happening. And while you're in the midst of it. Yet I've been through it enough to know that you do come out the other end, and things are pretty cool there, even though they're different than where they were. Um, just being able to react to things very differently. There, um, having had pretty severe PTSD most of my life, and having a medical procedure that actually interrupted that and stopped that, having what is it? SGBs, the ganglion blocking,
Mhm.
to interrupt that um, experience, so that there's no night terrors, no hypervigilance. Or I still have some hypervigilance, but not to the degree where I scream if I'm startled. um and I've been able to like really not have to like hold on so tight to everything, and to not think I'm going to die if change has to be made.
Mhm.
Um, so it's like, and it's all kind of a negotiation, kind of navigating that. Um, the we have my husband and I have a always this negotiation and this dance around stuff. And like, I love stuff, and it keeps me safe, and it's I'm surrounded by my security blanket stuff. But I know now that I don't die if, we fill up a bag and give it to Goodwill. It's like, that's fine. And he gets really anxious if I'm sick or if I'm going through a medical procedure. And the first time I realized that was when I had back surgery in 2004. And his way of dealing with my having back surgery was to give away stuff my grandmother had given me. And oh my God. So then anyhow, we learned that's his coping mechanism. So this time before surgery, we were cleaning, and he was going through the hall closet, and it's like, what's this? What's that? What's the other? Are you using this? And it's like, no, no, you can get rid of it. That's fine. So, he found my they were like, what are those things called? Popsicle molds that I had found on Temu that I was going to make for this summer, like, doing either a yogurt pop or a fruit like juice pop or whatever. And so I said, yeah, yeah, fine, you donate it. And and I told him what it was, and then it's like, it's fine, I can live without them. And then it's like an hour later, he comes across the pack of wooden sticks, and he said, what are these for? I said, those are for the bicycles you won't let me make. Give them away too. So we're in the process of finding him a comfy chair he likes, because your chair. And
Mhm.
he's not comfortable on that. It's
Mhm.
like, I don't know if it's his back or if it's the angle or whatever, but he wants something a little higher, a little firmer. So we have two matching chairs, and then the sofa that I said I'm not giving up. We're keeping that sofa until we move, and then when we move, we're not going to take furniture.
Mhm.
Um, so it's like we're not, So I said, just get a chair you're comfortable with. He said, well, we're going to get two chairs. I said, you're going to get one chair. Your ass can only sit in one chair at a time.
Right.
He said, well, you want to use that second chair as a shelf. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
but what would have, in my PTSD overreactive, it's like, you don't want me to be safe and you want to get rid of everything and you just want to get rid of me.
Mhm.
So, I recognize that, I'm going to get through it and get to the other side and I'm going to be fine. And
Mhm.
it'll, it's part of a really kind of crazy process. And,
Mhm.
at this point, I'm just kind of sitting back and enjoying the ride.
Mhm. Well, and I'm struck by how the way that Barbara starts this chapter is the larger process of evolution is repositioning you. And so the repositioning can bring up things where you don't even know why you're uncomfortable. You don't know why you're feeling uncertain or um and the other part is that when you have a medical procedure, for instance, you don't know how you're going to need to adapt in a different way because of that. So there's the emotional adaptation, there's the physical adaptation, and what begins to come up does not always make sense to somebody else. And, the two of you have been married for how many years?
It'll be 40 this year.
Okay, 40. Well, congratulations on that. So 40 years, they know each other well. And so I'll just say that to the listeners, you've gone through many cycles of repatterning where what was coming up physically, emotionally, mentally may not have made sense, but it was a preparation
Mhm.
for, and it was, I was thinking today about sometimes I'll watch the dogs. I'm at my daughter's home and I'll watch her dogs and I'll think they're going through something instinctive. Like you can just see that they're nervous about something or their behavior is a little bit off. And sometimes it's easier to watch an animal than it is a human with it, like we don't always have as much patience with the humans of what's going on. But there's like an anticipation of something. And it feels like that is part of repatterning. There's an anticipation of something. And sometimes that can feel exciting and curious. The blog post that I wrote about this pattern, I talked about when I was working at the University of Maryland in 1984. I was a research assistant in epidemiology. And one day I came into the office and I just said, hey, I heard about this thing called a computer and the stuff that we're hand counting every week and recounting, we could actually enter it into the computer and then the computer would just tabulate these statistics and everything. Well, people I worked with were using computers, but maybe not to the extent in my smaller office part. So, yeah, and I was just thinking, do we have email at that point, 1984? I don't think I started using email until the 1990s.
Right.
Um, and but there was something I was curious about, and because I was curious, my boss told me that there was a course that I could take for free, and I could come in on Saturday for a Saturday course that they were teaching. And so I learned something called Paradox. It's a database, um, yeah, database management system. So I used it. We used it a little bit. And a year later, someone who I knew at Johns Hopkins was looking for a project manager who knew Paradox.
Mhm.
And there weren't, it was not like a skill that a lot of people, I mean, I'm not saying I was like one in a million, but it was not, for someone who has the research background at the level I was at to know Paradox, because in my small office, I was the only person who knew how to use it at that point. Um, so I got a job because of that, and that led me to get a job a few years later working as a computer trainer, and they sent me for other trainers. And I could tell you that by the time social media came around, my curiosity had prepared me for, because I wasn't even using Paradox at that point. I ended up with a son who had a congenital heart defect, and I became a stay-at-home mom and started homeschooling my kids. And that, but when social media came out, it was that early preparation that helped me kind of adapt to the repatterning that was happening in the world, where I was able to get on Facebook and teach other people how to start a Facebook account, and and things like that. And again, it's not that they were like it was, you know, whatever, maybe one in a billion who knew it. There were lots of people who knew that, but my particular experience was preparing me for this next thing. And I've been thinking as you were talking about, being in kind of the unknown of what's coming. This is my summer of seeing things differently, like not knowing what that means.
Mhm.
That and knowing that, yeah, I feel like one of the points to just encourage everyone with at this point is that staying open and being curious will lead you to what you need to know when you need to know it. That is one of the superpowers of this stage, and to let go of the worry of it and to stay curious. And then as the patterning begins to change, letting go of what no longer serves you,
Right. Yeah.
that's part of it too. I know in the blog I also wrote, don't push the river, let the inspiration flow, because you really don't know how it's all going to come together.
Right.
Yeah. So what else does it bring up for you?
Well, another thing that is, I guess, just recently in my toolbox is the practice of repeating, I am loved, I am worthy, I am loved, I am worthy, I am loved, I am worthy.
Mm.
And, to do that in the shower, brushing the teeth, whenever. Uh, And, I've been doing it for like a couple weeks, and I'm saying, I really feel differently.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And at first I felt pretty like much like a fraud. It's like, yeah, whatever, I'm loved, I'm worthy. It's like saying, yeah, I am joyful. Um,
Mhm.
but it is. It's like the what is her name? Susan something or other, spiritual navigator on YouTube. She is the kind of out there. She's a psychic who does a lot of political readings. But then she also does things with asking angels for assistance and seeing auras and this and that. But that was her suggestion, was the mantra, I am loved, I am worthy, I am loved, I am worthy. And just to take an inventory. What is it that you don't like about your life right now? Is it a relationship? Is it a physical issue, your health, whatever, your circumstances, your job? But then list it all out, and then just do the I am loved, I am worthy, I am loved, I am worthy. And she said in 30 days, look at the list again and make note of everything that's changed.
Mm.
And I'm here to testify that, yeah, that it really does shift some energy.
And how often, like, what does the practice look like for you? Is it
For
something that
me,
you just
just
say in
when
the shower?
oh yeah, just to, like, when it comes to mind, just do it repeatedly until you don't. So it's like, could be 10 seconds, it could be 30 seconds, it could be 2 minutes.
And so you're
And if you
weaving it into your day. You're
absolutely,
weaving it. Okay.
absolutely. Right.
Hmm.
So, if you have an electric toothbrush, that's 2 minutes. And so if you do it while you're brushing your teeth, you'll get 2 minutes of that in.
Hmm.
Do it in the shower, do it when you're falling asleep, doing it anytime, washing the dishes,
Hmm.
doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
it's just taking in the energy of being loved and being worthy, being loved and being worthy. And it it's not that you're focusing on any specific thing to manifest. It's that you're changing your own energy so that you will find that your circumstances are different.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And again, it's what crosses your path,
Right.
what feels resonant with you in that moment, and experimenting with
Mhm.
it. Like, trust that it wouldn't be crossing your path if if there wasn't something for you to practice or just
Mhm.
see, experiment, try,
Right.
try what it is.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that Barbara also says in the book, and why something like that is so important, is she says that everything that is dysfunctional in your life gets more dysfunctional
Mhm.
while new functionalities start emerging. And so
Mhm.
what you're going to be releasing, and I'm, it'd be interesting to look back at when you first started it, if it felt like negative thoughts were coming up when you first started saying it, or
Mhm.
if a harder conversation with someone was there, because that also, I just want to, put a disclaimer warning for people that when you start saying I am loved, I am worthy, it is like cleaning something out. So you put
Mhm.
soapy water into something that has a muddy crust around it. Well, at first, the water is just going to be muddy and crusty. So keep doing it, keep
Mhm.
rinsing,
Mhm.
keep
Mhm. Mhm.
putting in the new, fresh, clear water. And that over time, that will shift.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so the other thing I wanted to bring up, and just I'm looking at the time and just noticing where we are, that we'll have a little bit more time here and then wrap up. But one of the things I brought up to you before we started recording was how I've been rereading the book by Brian Weiss that says "Same Soul, Many Bodies." And Brian Weiss is um, I want to say psychiatrist. I think that's what he's, a psychiatrist. And back in the 80s, uh, he had a patient who began to have past life memories come through in the sessions. And from that, he wrote a book, Many Lives, Many Masters, and talked about the impact of past lives in our current life. And the book, Same Soul, Many Bodies, talks about how he began to have patients who, when he took them through a hypnotic procedure, would see things in their future or see things in the future. And I was thinking about this step about if, what if we do have many lives, we come back again. What is it that we could begin to learn or change or study while we're in this lifetime that would affect, well, actually, if you don't change certain things, it could infect the future life. Uh, but what if it could, um, yeah, so like every once in a while, I'll think about, oh, I really want to learn this because then I'll have that knowledge in the next life, or I will at least have started it.
Right.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that because one of the people I listen to podcast wise is Alex Ferrari, I think, Next Level Soul podcast.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
And he does a lot of NDE people, near death experience people. And one of his favorite things to do is talk to scientists and lots of people about the quantum field and how everything is happening simultaneously, so that
Hmm.
your past life and your present life and your future life, it's all happening. And when you change something in your current existence, it ripples and affects both back and forward.
Hmm.
um, with the ancestry work that you do.
Hmm.
Um, that we are healing things from our ancestral lines and, changing what has to be carried on by, the future people in that line.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty pretty phenomenal stuff. I have, since I learned about the continuity of what is it, consciousness, that
Hmm.
actually it's, I think it's code 20
Yeah,
that
code
talks
20,
about.
ask for and receive continuity of consciousness. And Barbara says the body is always passing away, but the self that already has continuity of consciousness never passes away. So just
Right,
to bring context in for the listeners. Yeah.
right. So and um to date, um in this incarnation, what, maybe carnation, in this
Hmm.
incarnation, I have uh, glimpses of what has happened. But as far as I'm really looking forward to, like, really solid continuity of consciousness, so that um, I never have to go through third grade again.
Hmm. Hmm.
No long division. No, I know it. I don't need to ever learn it again. Um, so yeah, there's it pops up. I think it's, God, I can't remember who's doing it, but there's a lot of talk about quantum jumping
Mm-hmm.
and going to your different selves and your different incarnations and bringing back, consciously bringing back, the ability to speak a foreign language or to
Yeah.
compose music or whatever. But yeah, that it all ties in, and it sounds kooky and mind blowing, and yet, it's happening.
Hmm.
So yeah, I continuity of consciousness is something that I'm really looking forward to.
Hmm. Well, it ties in with so you brought up the ancestral lineage healing work that I do, and this past year I've been doing the psychopomp work, which is about assisting the dead that are who are kind of stuck or curse unraveling and those things. So one of the things that we talk about also is like preparing to die well,
Hmm.
and that there's a thing called the Death Lodge where you can actually go, um, you can do it in your room. You don't have to go to a lodge, but it's good to have someone who is guiding you and also is aware of you being in that kind of state. But it's like connecting with guides I mean, talk about edgy stuff, which I feel like we both love, is that if you could prepare for your death, which could be decades from now, could be, depending on your age, could be a long time from now, but that you take some time every year of, yeah, even without the death lodge, let me get simpler here. That if you even took time once or twice a year where it's like, am I living my life in the best way that I could be living my life? What is it that preparing to die well is about cleaning up the stuff that, so that you're not dying with things left undone, you know, and deciding, are you of what the way that you want to live your life, are you actually living it in that way that is congruent with what you say, who you are, what you want? And for some people, they might use the word authenticity. Are you authentically living? Or are you living some kind of double life where, on the one hand, um, you're saying you want to live a certain way and you are not. Like that prepares it. So the ancestral lineage healing, part of that is recognizing that beyond their control, many of our ancestors died before they had time to either grieve a loss or clear up something within themselves, and whatever that is. Sometimes we may think that we need to have a conversation with someone around forgiveness, let's say, but that person really wouldn't be able to receive the conversation. Then we can do other things. We can do a writing. We can sing with the wind. It's like there's different ways of um, just looking at how we're living our lives so that we die well and then we come back in the future with stuff that we're not carrying over from the past. One of the stories that I was telling you about was that Brian Weiss wrote about was a woman who was Jewish and hated Arab people. And so in a past life regression, the life that came up for her was she was a Nazi who hated Jewish people. So in this life, she's Jewish, hates Arabs. In the last lifetime, she was Nazi, hating Jews. Then he did a future progression with her, and she was Muslim, and there was I forget the group, but the hatred was passed from one, that it didn't matter how she identified herself, that there was always another group of people to hate. And so what she began to do was to practice compassion and forgiveness for herself and others. And then that shifted, at least in the hypnosis, what her next life would look like. So the repatterning, part of it is a preparation period, that you are preparing for what's next. Be ready to repattern at the next stage when the larger pattern is ready for you. So what is it that you need to prepare for? So I will just say, is there anything else that is coming up for you? And then we'll wrap up the show.
When you were talking about I think that we talked about this on at least one of the other shows, but the practice of Ho'oponopono.
Yeah.
And not only for dealing with other people and shifting energy between people, but for yourself.
Mhm.
It really is part of that compassion, that radical compassion, that self-forgiveness, and self-love, um, for either younger self, um, beliefs, attitudes, what have you. That, and you are worthy and you are loved, and that to really anchor that in and make it part of your DNA, that you really do love yourself and forgive yourself and are thankful. So
Yeah. And your practice of I am loved, I am worthy
mhm,
is creating a field within yourself. And as you
mhm,
walk through the world, that ripples out to
mhm,
to others and it ripples out to the collective consciousness.
mhm.
Yeah. So just to emphasize what you were saying, shining a light on that. Beautiful. All right. Well, for the listeners, I just want to let you know that the next code we're going to talk about is come forward as a new norm, not as superior or exceptional. So we'll see where we go on that conversation. And as always, Karen, thank you so much for being here, being you, bringing forward your experiences and sharing them with others. Thanks. It's so
Well,
much
thanks for creating the venue, the opening this resonant field so that others can join in, and that you and I can dip our toes in and
Mhm.
get to remind ourselves what it feels like to be in that kind of energetic field.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks. And to the listeners, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening and to share the recording with others. That feels good to you. And to know that some of the things that Karen and I were talking about, I have put the links into the show page. So check out some of the things that are lighting us up too. All right.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.